Before we start the next module, let's go ahead and check each of your hero inventories to see whether they have at least 10 days worth of rations and water skins for the journey ahead. Yes, each of your heroes have at least 10 rations and 10 water skins. You're ready to begin the next module. Just outside of Nace to the west, you can either return into the city or take the road northeast, which leads out of Hope Air and toward the Cyan Desert to the northwest and the Nararian Plains to the northeast. Travel alert: using the road, you travel northeast, taking an hour to arrive. Your adventures within the city of Nace now behind you, the party begins to travel northeast away from the capital and into new territory. Naturally, the experience of the past few days weighs heavily on everyone's minds, the attack of the Hellions as well as the conflict between the humans and the feline quite disturbing. Indeed, it does not take long before someone initiates a conversation. Not to be pessimistic, but racial justice is never gained overnight. Eswin begins. I doubt much will change in Nace over the short term. What do you think, Janet? Choose an option. Nothing more we can do about it. The feline will likely continue to suffer. The humans and feline will find a way. Janet permanently increases her optimism score by 1 point, disagreeing with Eswin. You express your belief that what's been started in Nace now has a very real chance for success, and that, fairly soon, the humans and feline will learn how to live with one another and find a way to peacefully coexist. At least you hope so. A few hours later, a lone figure is spotted marching toward your party from the northeast along the road. The shorter figure appears to be carrying a large pack on his back and is using a long wooden staff to walk with. Soon the figure is just several dozen feet away, revealing himself to be an older dwarf who is not a threat. How do you wish to interact with him? Choose an option: be civil, be curious, be suspicious. Most of your heroes carefully examine the humanoid as he reaches you, looking for any clues as to who the dwarf is or why he is here. Well met, dwarf, Ariana begins, her eyes darting all about the traveler. You seem to be on a long journey. What brings you to Nace? The dwarf reaches you and stops, a bit winded as he leans on his wooden staff for support. Retrieving a long handkerchief, the demi-human dabs his forehead, then puts the colorful item back into a pocket before addressing you. The name is Vajral, and I have news you may want to hear. But first, can you spare a water skin or two? Janet offers, uses the water skin and loses it from her inventory. Thanks mightily. Vajral responds, consuming the water skin with a few gulps. You seem a bit dehydrated, Kartha observes. Have you been traveling long? About 3 weeks now, Vajral responds as the water skin is completely emptied. I hail from Blue, the capital city of the Cyan Desert to the north. Are you familiar with it? Let's do a party curiosity check to see if anyone has any details regarding the city Vajral has just mentioned. Needing a 11 or less from your heroes, a 4 was rolled. Success, yes, Blue, the dwarven capital of the Cyan Desert, Redfern offers, aware of the city. A splendid oasis in the middle of a large desert, its supply of water so vast that it flows like tears down the city's power tower. The dwarf pauses a moment, then continues with his important news. All the water stopped flowing within Blue, the city has gone dry. That's never happened before, and everyone there is in a panic. I was one of the first to leave, but crossing the desert is dangerous, most remain trapped and are dying of thirst. How did an entire city find water in the desert in the first place? Eswin questions, a bit surprised. Blue had all the water it needed for centuries, Vajral responds. Why it suddenly vanished is a complete mystery, perhaps a mystery the lot of you would be keen on solving. Choose an option: finding water in a desert isn't our thing. Is there an official reward involved? We can't let those dwarves die of thirst. A reward? Vajral responds, surprised. I suspect that if you can restore water to Blue, you can have anything you'd want. Oh Lord Hefralin is incredibly wealthy, money is no object, I am sure. It seems, then, that this desert city should be our next destination. Saneir's comments, relatively quiet until now. How, exactly, do we get there? Take this road northeast for a week, the dwarf responds, pointing back the way he came. You'll reach an intersection, take that road due west into the desert for another 2 weeks or so and you will arrive in blue. Before ending the encounter, let's do a quick wisdom check on your hero to see if you learn anything more. Needing a 14 or less from Janet, a 7 was rolled. Success. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. Is there anything more we should know about? Your hero wisely inquires. Yeah. When you reach the road leading west, be careful of all the bandits in the area. They've set up camp all around the intersection so you won't be able to avoid them. They'll likely want a toll from you for passing through, mind your manners and they won't rough you up too bad. Bandits. Eswin scoffs, not impressed. Maybe well demand a toll from them. Ariana chuckles, a bit enamored with Eswin's confidence and dry humor. Then I will be on my way, Vajral announces, stepping forward again and in the direction of Nace. Best of luck to all of you, do me and my fellow dwarven brethren proud. As the dwarf walks away, let's do a spirit check on your hero to see how well you can gauge the sincerity of Vajral during the conversation. Needing a 14 or less from Janet, a 6 was rolled. Success. Yes, there is no doubt that the dwarf was quite sincere during his brief time with your party. Hence, you're confident that his story is legitimate and that you need to reach blue as soon as possible. The road here leads northeast to southwest, forward toward the road west to blue, a week's march away or back to Nace if so desired. Travel alert, using the road, you travel northeast, taking a week to arrive. You've reached a makeshift camp, dozens of tents, several shoddy buildings and a variety of wagons standing about. A second road intersects with the first beyond, the second leading due west and into the heart of the Cyan Desert. To get to it, however, means having to pass through the crowded camp. Dozens of humans, some dwarves, and even a few half-orcs wander about, their bodies dirty and their clothes unkempt, and they don't look too happy watching you approach. Let's do an intelligence check to determine your hero's initial impression at the bandit camp. Needing a 13 or less from Janet, a 1 was rolled. Success. It seems likely that this is some sort of bandit camp, the people here thieves, cutthroats, hired thugs and other lowlifes. Naturally, you will want to be on your guard as you approach. A small handful of guards stand between you and the camp beyond, their weapons and armor shoddy but the sentries not men you want to engage. Eswin draws his blade just to be safe as you approach. You ain't the law, here to take us on? One of the guards asks, clutching his weapon. There is hundreds of us and only a few of you. The sentries clearly want you to state your business. What would that be? Choose an option. We don't want any trouble, we're just passing through, we're not law enforcement. Smart, we're not looking for trouble either, the guard responds, still distrusting but maintaining the peace. And what brings you through these parts? I don't think that's any of your business. Eswin huffs, ready to take on all the humanoids here if it came to that. Indeed, Eswin seems to intimidate the guards and they change the topic of conversation. Sure, your business is your own, another guard responds. We don't care. Toll is 10 gold to enter the camp, now don't give us any trouble. Looks like you will need to pay a small fee if you want to enter the camp. First, however, let's do an empathy check on your hero to see if you notice anything more. Needing a 12 or less from Janet, a 19 was rolled. Failure. No, nothing more comes to mind. While you could potentially hack your way forward and avoid the 10 gold coin toll, there is certainly no reason to do that. Just pay the men and be on your way. GM note, Janet lost 2 platinum pieces, your payment is secured and the guards step aside, allowing you access to the makeshift camp beyond. The road here offers access to the camp just to the north of the party, the same road leading back to Nace about a week's march away. Feel free to wade into the camp and learn more about the people living here. Travel alert, using the road, you travel north, taking a minute to arrive. The small group of armed bandit guards you encountered earlier continue to patrol the road here, ensuring that all travelers are stopped, questioned and, if they wish admittance to the camp, charged a toll as well. Now that you've arrived within the camp, you won't need to deal with them again. Looking north, you can see how a smaller road leads away to the west from the main road, that's most likely the way to Blue. Around the intersection of the 2 roads are a small collection of tents and crudely developed buildings where, it appears, you can gain access to a local merchant, smithy, tavern, and so forth. The bandits walking about the camp continue to eye you warily, but you're generally free to go where you wish. Let's do a quick spirit check on your hero to see if you notice anything further. Needing a 14 or less from Janet, a 10 was rolled. Success, even for a small camp occupied by bandits, thieves, cutthroats and the like, the people here seem extremely depressed, as if they've already accepted that they're all doomed. You sort of feel sorry for these humanoids here and wonder if there is any help for them. You're free to either explore the small camp here to the north or use the road you arrived upon to head south again back toward Nace. GM note, merchants buy and sell items of up to 100 gold pieces in value. Travel alert, using the road, you travel north, taking 20 minutes to arrive, nestled just to the east of the intersection of the 2 roads here within the bandit camp, you reach a small and dilapidated old tent serving as the local merchant. Entering the shoddy construction, a human woman soon hails the party, ready to buy and sell if you wish. The initial transaction complete, you ask the woman if she knows anything about the loss of water within the capital city of Blue to the west. There has been a small exodus from the city as of late, the merchant begins, a bit irritated. Those dwarves were always a little too proud if you ask me, building such a massive city in the middle of a desert and squandering their water by letting it fall from the top of their power tower. They thought the water would never run out, but nothing lasts forever. Perhaps a few extra gold coins would loosen her tongue even more. GM note, Janet lost 2 platinum pieces, dropping a few coins down on the counter alongside the merchant. She smiles, deposits the wealth into one of her pockets and continues to tell you more. The dwarves of Blue are haughty and arrogant, and they'll never admit to anything being wrong even if the entire city is at risk. Young Lord Hefralin is the worst of the lot, he all but owns the city, but don't trust anything he says. The merchant looks you in the eye, then turns away, having said all that she's going to say. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. The merchant awaits for you to buy and sell any mundane item you wish, a look of scorn and disdain on her youthful face. Barthol lost 25 platinum pieces. In return, he receives 5 potions of light healing. Travel alert, using the road, you travel northwest, taking 10 minutes to arrive. Entering one of the largest buildings within the bandit camp, you encounter all sorts of weapons, suits of armor, shields and other objects related to combat and the general defense of a combatant. A moment later, an incredibly muscular human appears from beyond a simple counter and hails you, ready to buy and sell. The transaction concludes and the smithy thanks you for your business. Do you know anything about the capital city of Blue, and its water apparently running out? Redfern unexpectedly asks, surprising you. There is definitely something going on there, the smithy responds, matter-of-factly. I would say several dozen dwarves have passed through recently, all with the same general story, getting out while they still had enough water left to cross the desert. I have no idea what happened, but it does not sound good. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. We're more worried about all the dwarves who must still be within the city, Redfern responds. If all the water has indeed dried up, it could be a catastrophe for all the dwarves there. The smithy nods his head, trusting that your party can somehow solve the mystery in time. The smithy awaits for you to buy and sell additional weapons, suits of armor and shields you may need for the many trials ahead. Travel alert, using the path, you travel southwest, taking 15 minutes to arrive. Entering this older, dirty, and bloodstained tent, you find all the makings of a field surgeon's quarters, with several cots on the floor, bandages everywhere and a variety of liquor bottles standing about, some still full but many empty and even tipped over. The tent stinks with the stench of decay, and your party, especially the clerics, find the interior disgusting. Recognizing that the area is used to treat the wounded and maimed, let's do an empathy check on your hero to see if you notice anything more here. Needing a 12 or less from Janet, a 13 was rolled. Failure. Looking about, it does occur to you that the sad, painful, even horrifying way these men here in the camp live their lives must be unfortunate. The bandits here routinely sewn back together again after receiving their grievous injuries out in the field. Yes, you're used to pain and bloodshed as well, but at least your party is blessed with several clerics who can patch you back together in mere moments with their healing magic, rather than through the barbaric surgeries performed here within this tent. What do you all want? A gruff, older voice comes from the far corner of the tent. Moments later, an older dwarf lumbers toward you, a blood-stained apron hanging from his waist. Bits of blood stuck in his long beard and wearing a patch over his left eye as well. He's the last person you'd want helping you if in need of surgical care, and you're not sure how to respond. An adventuring party? Humph. The dwarf spits, not impressed. Come back later, I am busy. All but ignoring the surgeon, you take a quick look around, and it does not take long before you find something horrible. Back where the field surgeon had first approached the party, you find a human bandit or soldier lying on one of the cots, drenched in blood, shivering violently and moaning almost like a ghost. The human is obviously dying and your thoughts turn from search to rescue. Leave him be, the dwarven surgeon commands, joining you alongside the gravely wounded bandit. Hell soon pass from the living to the unliving. Saint steps alongside the victim, examining his wounds and preparing to treat him. As Saint grabs his holy symbol and begins a spell, the dwarven surgeon grabs his hand and stops him, ordering the cleric to stand down. I said, leave him be, just watch and learn. Before your eyes, the human bandit passes from life to unlife, suddenly growing long, sharp nails, fangs and hair. Moments later, the transformation is complete, the human now a monstrous white. Retrieving a large vial of clear, watery liquid from one of his soiled pockets, the surgeon shows it to you and then pours the contents down the throat of the newborn white. Immediately, the monster spits the substance out, the water acting as a strong acid and all but melting the face and throat of the creature, destroying it. The spectacle is quite disturbing, and you turn back to the field surgeon, wondering for a moment if he is responsible for what you've just witnessed. Indeed, let's do a reason check on your hero and see what you discern from the experience. Needing a 12 or less from Janet, a 17 was rolled. Failure, the scene before you was painful to watch, and you want to blame the dwarven surgeon in some capacity. Indeed, the dwarf can see on your face that you blame him for what's just happened, and he's having none of it. He was bitten by a white just hours ago, north of the camp, the surgeon explains, setting the empty vial of holy water on a nearby table. He was already turning into a white when you arrived. I am sorry you had to witness that. And if we had applied healing magic, it would have just prolonged this poor fellow's suffering, Kartha adds, now recognizing why the dwarf stopped her and Saint from using their magical healing abilities. This is still a barbaric place, Saint criticizes, looking about. I can't imagine trying to heal the sick and wounded in such surroundings. Not all of us can use magic, the surgeon replies, disrespected. While you clerics are off saving the world, some of us are left behind to do the work nobody else wants. You said this man was bitten north of here? Eswin asks, recognizing the potential clue. An old chapel about 2 hours march due north along the forest line. It was once the home to a necromancer named Khaldun, now it's his death crypt and he's using it to spew out undead. It needs to be destroyed, along with Khaldun and all the monsters he's created. Well, do what we can, Eswin replies, speaking on your behalf. We know what to do now. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details, then off you go, the dwarven surgeon orders as he pulls a soiled sheet over the bandit corpse. Just be careful, Khaldun became quite the necromancer and has likely taken on an undead form himself, a wraith, mummy or even lich. You'll have your hands full with him, I reckon. That does not sound good, Kartha comments as you depart the surgeon's tent. We can handle a wraith on our own, but I am not sure about a mummy and I doubt we could defeat a lich. Let's go find out, Eswin adds, not afraid. Back outside the surgeon's tent, there is little more to do here, time to move on. Travel alert, using the path, you travel northwest, taking 10 minutes to arrive. You've now reached the western edge of the bandit camp, the road under your feet continuing due west for as far as the eye can see. It's a good 2 weeks journey to Blue from this location. Recognizing that the bandits here within the camp still need your help in eradicating Khaldun and his undead army, however, it's not yet time to depart for Blue. Instead, you need to go north, find the ruined chapel leading to Khaldun's death crypt and destroy him and his minions. Travel alert, using the road, you travel east, taking 20 minutes to arrive, adjacent to the intersection of the two roads within the bandit camp. The small tavern seems somewhat better constructed and features perhaps half a dozen tables and chairs for those looking to dine, imbibe, and otherwise pass the time. While the bartender and waiter staff all seem dour and even a bit intimidating, a few gold coins are all it would take to be seated, sated, and listening for rumors. Sorry, but Janet does not have enough coin. So you know, your player character. GM note, Janet lost 20 silver pieces. The bartender collects your 2 gold pieces with a look that chills your soul, then escorts you to a larger table that can accommodate the entire party. Plenty of food and drink are brought and you spend the next hour or so filling your bellies and generally relaxing. Having had your fill, you then listen attentively for rumors amidst the din of soft conversations. An hour passes, during which you hear something intriguing. I've fought skeletons before, normally a good club can take them down in 1 or 2 swings. But these crimson skeletons that have been attacking lately, it can take a dozen strikes before they stay down. It's almost as if they regenerate or something. An hour passes, during which you hear something intriguing. The bandit leader here, Xerxes is his name, does not seem to care about the curse at all. Maybe he's in league with Khaldun and his army of undead, maybe he wants to destroy us all as well. An hour passes, during which you hear something intriguing. I am telling you, Uncle Willie is undead now. He disappeared the night before last, then last night returned home a shadow of himself and reeking of death. I know what a zombie is, and Uncle Willie is one now. Travel alert, using the path, you travel southeast, taking 15 minutes to arrive. This loose collection of tents, wagons, and carts is basically home to dozens of the bandits here, a dirty, decrepit, pitiful place to exist out in the wilderness. The men here seem both angry and depressed, and your presence isn't helping. Well, if it isn't some high and mighty adventuring party out to slaughter us bad guys, one of the thieves begins, mocking you in his own despair. Well, give you a fight if that's what you want. There are about 10 humans, dwarves, and even half-orcs here, and most of them are slowly reaching for their weapons. How do you react? Choose an option: attack, give them the fight they want; converse, you're only here to talk; heal, offer healing services to the wounded. The empathy score for Janet remains the same. In exchange for information, you offer to heal any superficial wounds of the bandits here, a very surprising offer that, at first, sounds incredulous to the men. Your clerics then get to work, treating the sick and injured, in a non-magical way. You now have the full attention of the various ruffians here. What do you ask about? Choose an option: bandit plans, what are you doing here? City of Blue, what's going on there? Khaldun, who's this necromancer? One of the men here steps forward, eyeing his fellow bandits with apprehension before providing some intriguing information. Khaldun was an evil cleric turned necromancer a few years ago. He was put to death, but not before cursing us, warning that he would return with an entire army of undead. Lately, undead have been seen to the north, near the chapel where he died, and some of us here in the camp have also disappeared. We fear the worst. It sounds like you will need to explore this chapel north of the camp. Why can't the dead just stay dead? GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. The bandits here have now said their piece, there is nothing more you will get from them. Feel free to explore the rest of the camp. Travel alert, using the path, you travel northeast, taking 5 minutes to arrive, about 10 yards northeast of the bandit barracks. This rather odd location has several guards standing watch, but who apparently are guarding nothing. It looks like you will need to talk to the guards to find out more. Move along, travelers, one of the guards calls out. You have no business here. Reaching the guards, you notice at your feet what appears to be a wooden door or grate, crisscrossing slats of wood that allow you to peer down into a shallow pit below. They're holding pits, Ariana recognizes. I think I see 3 of them. Who's there? A muffled voice comes from one of the pits, both anxious and angry. The guards draw their weapons, they don't want you involved. What do you do? Choose an option, answer the prisoner, ignoring the guards, ask the guards about the prisoner, ignore the prisoner and walk away. He's a dwarven thief, the second guard returns, at least willing to answer your question. We caught him sneaking into the chieftain's tent, now we're not sure what to do with him. Don't you know who I am? The voice calls out from below again. Get me out of here, now. Shut your trap, you old, goofy dwarf. The second guard shouts, annoyed. We don't care who you are. I am not that old. The voice returns, insulted. Set me free, and I will show you a thing or two. Is someone up there with you? The voice calls again, hoping for benefactors. 1,000 gold to whoever sets me free. You're not going free. The first guard shouts again, quite annoyed now. You tried to steal from us, a band of thieves. We're not going to forget that. 1,000 gold? Ariana asks, innocently intrigued. Is he serious? The dwarf has been saying that since we imprisoned him, the guard responds. The old bird does not have a copper to his name. I told you, I lost it all in the desert on my way here. The voice again calls from below, a little embarrassed. Let me out, and I will tell you all about it. Save it for someone who cares. The second guard calls down, tired of the conversation. A moment passes. Sainadius then steps to you, something on his mind. The dwarf said something about the desert. Maybe he knows what's going on in blue. Suggesting that you talk directly to the dwarven prisoner. What do you say to the bandit guards? Choose an option, free the dwarf now or else. How about 50 gold to talk to the dwarf? What can be done to free the dwarf? The spirit score for Janet remains the same, we can't just free the dwarf. But, since you're asking nicely, I suppose there is no harm with asking him a few questions. The men then open the gate and haul the hapless dwarf back to the surface. His hands bound behind his back, the dwarf resists his captors, not happy with his current predicament. Still, being above ground is better than in the pit, so the dwarf is less grumpy. A few questions, no more. The first guard instructs, still holding the rope used to lower and raise captives from the pit. Mighty obliged, the dwarf begins, taking his first real look at your party. It's hotter than the dragon's lair down there. Are you, by chance, from Blue? Sainadius inquires, getting straight to the point. Am I? The dwarf responds, almost enthusiastic. I am Prince Hebrami, grandson of Lord Hefralin himself. How dare these hooligans treat me like this? The guards just roll their eyes, not buying the dwarf story. Let's do a quick wisdom check on your hero to gauge your first impressions. Needing a 14 or less from Janet, a 16 was rolled. Failure, your first impression is that Prince Hibrami is a likable dwarf who's in a bit of trouble, you definitely want to hear him out. Prince Hibrami continues. My caravan was attacked by giant ant lions crossing the desert, and I lost everyone and everything. By the time I reached this miserable camp, I would gone without food or drink for days. A dwarf is entitled to his sustenance, right? Not within the chieftain's private tent, the second guard announces, still not interested. Never mind that, Sainairs continues. Was Blue in trouble when you left? Do you know what's going on there? You mean the water shortage afflicting our beautiful city? The dwarf responds, quite aware of what is happening there. We've always had more water than what we needed. Then, a few weeks ago, bam. All the water is suddenly gone, and nobody knows why. I came for help, and then these good-for-nothing vagrants caught me. All right, enough talk. The first guard commands, about to toss the dwarf back down into the pit. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. Prince Hibrami turns back to you, his anger and frustration now tempered perhaps with the anxiety of being dropped into the hot, suffocating holding pit again. Wait. Heroes, please. My grandfather would pay a huge ransom for my safe return. Get me out of here, return to Blue with me and I will make all of you rich. Hearing this, the guards stop what they're doing and look to you, unsure of your intentions. How do you react to the offer? Choose an option, demand the dwarf be set free, refuse the offer and walk away. Janet permanently decreases her honor score by 1 point, the guards recognizing that your party can easily defeat them, they curse you but untie Prince Hibrami, releasing him into your care. That was a bit heavy-handed, but the guards aren't exactly heroes themselves. You have my eternal gratitude, friends. Prince Hibrami says as the guards untie him, then go about their business, glad to be done with you. Before we part ways, do you have a few more gold pieces you can share so I can equip, arm and feed myself? First, how do we collect that huge ransom you said your grandfather would pay for your release? Eswin asks, never willing to just trust a stranger's word. Maybe you should return to Blue with us. That would not be a good idea, the dwarf returns, surprising you. There are things I need to do before I can return. Now, about that loan? Hibrami's story does not sound entirely plausible. So, let's do an intelligence check on your hero to see if you can determine anything further. Needing a 13 or less from Janet, a 10 was rolled. Success, yes, you're pretty sure the dwarf is lying to you about something, you're just not sure what. You probably still did the right thing by setting him free, but don't expect much. If you make it to Blue and speak to my grandfather, tell him what you did for me. If he does not believe you, tell him I named my first dire wolf cub Padfood, that should convince him you're telling the truth. Padfood. Got it, Eswin returns, memorizing the name. Now, how much do you need? I can get by with, say, 500 gold pieces. Surely an able party like yours can easily afford that? Yikes. This dwarf must have expensive tastes. How do you respond? Give 0 gold but offer advice? GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. Distrusting of Hibrami and unwilling to offer even a single copper piece, you instead tell him to be thankful with his freedom and to not squander it. The dwarf is quite miffed, eyeing you as if you were the most selfish person in Sicilis. Prince Hibrami bows deeply, an apparent dwarven custom, then turns and flees the general area, soon out of sight. He was lying to us, wasn't he? Kartha finally adds, the cleric quite perceptive. Probably, but it's better to give him the benefit of the doubt, Redfern responds, convinced that you handled the situation fairly well. Let's go. The encounter at the holding pit's over, there is nothing more for you to do here. Naturally, Feel free to explore more of the bandits' camp. Travel alert, using the path, you travel northwest, taking 15 minutes to arrive, located several dozen yards to the northeast of the road intersection here within the camp, you come across a modest tent that seems a little cleaner, straighter and better constructed than all the others, suggesting that someone of importance is camped here. 2 guards stand at the tent's entrance, watching you suspiciously as you approach. Move along, the first guard orders as you reach the tent. You have no business here. Looks like you found the leader of the bandits within the camp. What do you do? Choose an option: bribe, offer 25 gold to enter, lie, the camp is under attack. Threaten, raise your weapons. You can't buy your way through, the first guard states, waving off your attempt to bribe him. Now, move along, or we will be forced to rally all the troops here and make you move along. Both of the guards raise their weapons and ready themselves for combat, the situation suddenly turning tense, and for several long moments you stand there at an impasse, not sure what to do next. Martins, Jacobs, stand down, both of you. Let them in, a voice then commands from within the tent, a deep, hoarse voice full of strength and authority. Without taking their eyes off you, the 2 guards reluctantly lower their weapons and take a step away from the tent's entrance, allowing you passage. Your heroes look to you for approval, and with an affirmative nod, Eswin and Ariana lead the rest of you into the better constructed tent. The interior is perhaps 20 feet to a side, large enough to accommodate the modest living quarters of the person who you assume commands the bandits here. A wide variety of personal items and objects lie about, from trunks and cabinets to a small bed in the far corner. Sitting behind a wooden desk is a figure currently concealed in shadow, apparently reviewing several older maps lying atop the desk. Leading your party to the desk, you can see that the rogue before you is dressed in chain armor, his helmet also sitting on the table just a few feet away. What do you want? The figure speaks again, his deep, authoritative voice almost demanding immediate respect. Introducing yourselves, you mumble something about wanting a word with the bandit leader here in the camp. The figure there at the desk pauses and looks up to you, revealing himself to be a half-orc. Standing a little over 5 feet in height, the creature appears human in almost all aspects except for his skin color, which is decidedly more orcish and something you've never really seen before. Likely used to the surprised look on your face, the half-orc quickly comments. What, you've never seen a half-orc before? No, you haven't seen a half-orc before, at least not this close. Let's do a tolerance check on your hero to see what happens next. Needing a 17 or less from Janet, a 10 was rolled. Success, you suppress your initial shock, trying to show the half-orc the equality and respect he deserves. After a soft smile and a gentle nod, the half-orc returns the gesture, your encounter with him off to a good start. I was told there were adventurers in the camp, the half-orc continues, addressing you directly. I am Xerxes, the leader of the many souls here, and they obey me without question. I hope you haven't come to stir up trouble for us. Why have we come here? Eswin whispers in your ear, unsure himself. Sensing you will only get one chance to respond appropriately, what do you say? Choose an option: diplomacy, perhaps we can work together? Empathy, we're here to help if we can. Honor, we can't allow you to stay here? We don't normally receive any help from outsiders, Xerxes responds, unsure about your true motives. Let me guess, you will do something for us if we pick up our camp and move on, is that it? The half-orc looks away for several moments, his mind apparently racing with other thoughts. Xerxes then returns back to you, a little more trust in his eyes. Are you familiar with the Curse of Khaldun? One of your guards told us all about it within the camp barracks, Redfern responds, speaking on your behalf. It sounds like you may have an undead necromancer terrorizing your men here. Xerxes looks to you again and continues. We originally made camp here to charge a toll from those passing through, but it is time we moved on, especially with the undead threat north of us. I would been thinking about attacking the ruined chapel where Khaldun was put to death in the hopes of saving a few of my missing men, but you heroes are far better trained and equipped to deal with such a dangerous adversary. If you can destroy the undead yourselves and bring back my missing men, we will pull up camp here and move on. What say you? Choose an option. Yes, but only if you help as well. Yes, but only if you pay us as well. Yes, of course, we will move out right away. The party's reputation score permanently increases by 1 point. GM note, your quest log has been updated. Click the quests button for all the details. Very good. Xerxes responds with a nod, confident your party can indeed do the job. The half-orc then steps over to a small chest tucked away behind his desk, retrieving the worn object and placing it atop his desk. Opening the chest with a simple key from his desk, Xerxes retrieves a collection of glass vials, each filled with a clear liquid. I've been gathering all this holy water in anticipation of an attack on Khaldun's chapel. There are 12 vials here, they're yours to use against the many undead you're sure to face. Xerxes hands them all to you, and soon they're stowed away within your pack. Then we have a deal. Xerxes commands, stepping toward the sole entrance to his living quarters here. Go take care of Khaldun and all his undead, and return as many of my men as you can. If you live up to your end of the bargain, we will break camp and move on, you will never see us again. Good luck. And with that, Xerxes opens the large flap of his tent and awaits for you to leave. Naturally, Xerxes will say nothing more now until Khaldun is defeated and his kidnapped men, or what may remain of them, are brought back to the camp safe and sound. Again in front of the tent of Xerxes, the two guards here stand defiantly before the doorway, waiting for you to make good on your mission to destroy Khaldun. Until that's done, you won't be able to do anything more here. Travel alert, using the path, you travel west, taking a half hour to arrive. You're reached a small campsite here, open to anyone who wants to pitch a tent, settle down for a night, rest, and recover. There is no charge to camp here, so feel free to visit as often as you wish. Click the camp button to sleep for 8 hours, recover lost hit points and regain party spells. Then, use the travel to new area drop down to visit another local area. Travel alert, using the path, you travel northeast, taking 20 minutes to arrive, back on the main road that led you into the bandit camp. It exits north here, a trek of some 10 to 12 days to the Nararian plains to the northeast. You're also fairly sure that if you follow the road an hour or so, you will find the path leading due north to the ruined chapel of Khaldun, his supposed death crypt. Hence, feel free to travel north if you're ready to exit the interior of the bandit camp and return to the overland map. Otherwise, you can turn back south and visit any of the bandit camp areas again. Travel alert, using the road, you travel north, taking a few moments to arrive. The road here offers access to the bandit camp, the same road leading south back to Nace about a week's march away. The trail leading north toward the death crypt is also available. Travel alert, using the trail, you travel north, taking 10 minutes to arrive. Back on the road leading northeast toward the Nararian plains, you quickly discover a tiny trail headed due north toward the edge of the forest beyond. Surely this is the path leading to Khaldun's death crypt, and you assume this is the way the undead have been taking to steal into the bandits' camp to wound and kidnap its inhabitants. This is where it gets dangerous, Sainairs begins, perhaps stating the obvious. Everyone, be on your guard. Conducting a search of the area, you don't find anything other than muddy tracks leading north. What was that? Ariana cries, hearing the snapping of nearby vegetation. A moment later, several armed skeletons leap forward to attack the party, nearly surprising all of you. As they rush forward, you also notice what appears to be several skeletal clerics. Be careful, as they will assault you with evil cleric magic. Your party is under attack. Threatening all of you are 5 skeletons, 2 skeleton archers, 3 crimson skeletons and 2 lesser skeletal clerics. It's Janet's turn. What do you want her to do? Janet uses Turn Undead, attempting to turn destroy all encountered undead. Skeleton number 1 is turned, skeleton number 2 is turned, skeleton number 3 is turned, skeleton number 4 is turned, skeleton number 5 is turned, skeleton archer number 1 is turned. It's Ariana's turn. What do you want her to do? Trap. A hidden cage falls atop the party, potentially trapping them. The trap is accidentally set off. Trap results: Janet is not held, needing a 14 or greater. Janet rolls a 20 and saves versus Dragon Breath. Ariana is not held, needing a 11 or greater. Ariana rolls a 20 and saves versus Dragon Breath. Barthol avoids the effect. Redfern casts Phantasmal Force on Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2, horrifying him for 3 points of damage for 5 minutes, needing a 13 or greater. Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2 rolls a 12 and fails versus spells. It's Eswin's turn. What do you want him to do? Eswin readies his shortbow and fires at Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2, needing a 16 to hit. Die roll is a 8, plus 3. Crimson Skeleton number 3 closes in on Ariana to attack. Lesser Skeletal Cleric casts Hold Person on Ariana, holding her and causing her to become immobilized in place for an hour, needing a 10 or greater. Ariana rolls a 7 and fails versus spells. Lesser Skeletal Cleric casts Hold Person on Redfern, holding him and causing him to become immobilized in place for an hour, needing a 12 or greater. Redfern rolls a 11 and fails versus spells. It's Barthol's turn. What do you want him to do? Barthol readies his short sword +1 and swings at Crimson Skeleton number 3, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 15, plus 5 to hit. Barthol hits Crimson Skeleton number 3, doing 3 points of damage. Crimson Skeleton number 3 suffers only half damage against edged. Kartha uses Turn Undead, but wasn't able to turn any of the encountered undead. Skeleton Archer number 2 attacks Janet with its shortbow, needing an 18 to hit. Crimson Skeleton number 1 closes in on Janet to attack. GM note: a new combat round has begun. Initiative is rolled, with higher values acting first. It's Barthol's turn. Barthol readies his short sword +1 and swings at Crimson Skeleton number 3, needing a 13 to hit. Janet casts Spiritual Hammer on Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2, bashing him for 6 points of damage for 5 minutes. Crimson Skeleton number 2 attacks Kartha with its short sword, needing a 6. It's Kartha's turn. What do you want her to do? Kartha casts Spiritual Hammer on Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2, bashing him for 5 points of damage for 5 minutes. Lesser Skeletal Cleric number 2 has been defeated. It's Redfern's Phantasmal Force's turn. What do you want it to do? Redfern directs his phantasmal force at skeleton archer number 2, horrifying it for 3 points of damage and leaving it with 2 hit points. Skeleton archer number 2 it's Eswin's turn. What do you want him to do? Eswin readies his longsword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 2, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 12, +6 to hit. Lesser skeletal cleric casts darkness throughout the entire local area, removing all traces of light and plunging everything into magical darkness. GM note, a new combat round has begun. Initiative is rolled, with higher values acting first. It's Eswin's turn. What do you want him to do? Eswin readies his longsword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 2, needing a 13 to hit. Janet uses a glowing skull throughout the entire local area, illuminating everything well. It's Kartha's spiritual hammer's turn. What do you want it to do? Kartha directs her spiritual hammer at skeleton archer number 2, bashing it for 1 point of damage and leaving it with 1. It's Kartha's turn. What do you want her to do? Kartha readies her quarterstaff +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 2, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 9, +4 to hit. Kartha hits crimson skeleton number 2, doing 6 points of damage and leaving it with 3 hit points. Crimson skeleton number 2 attacks Kartha with its short sword, needing a 16 to hit. Die roll is a 13, +2 to hit. Crimson skeleton number 2 misses Kartha. Crimson skeleton number 2 also regenerates 1 hit point. It's Barthal's turn. What do you want him to do? Barthal readies his short sword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 2, needing a 13 to hit. Janet directs her spiritual hammer at skeleton archer number 2, bashing it for 5 points of damage and defeating it. Lesser skeletal cleric casts cause fear on Kartha, frightening her and causing her to cower in terror for 20 minutes, needing a 14 or greater. Kartha rolls a 5 and fails versus spells. It's Redfern's phantasmal force's turn. What do you want it to do? GM note, a new combat round has begun. Initiative is rolled, with higher values acting first. Redfern directs his phantasmal force at crimson skeleton. Barthal readies his short sword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 2, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 8. Janet casts cause light wounds on lesser skeletal cleric number 1, wounding him for 6 points of damage, needing a 13 or greater. Lesser skeletal cleric number 1 rolls a 1 and failed. It's Redfern's phantasmal force's turn. What do you want it to do? Redfern directs his phantasmal force at lesser skeletal cleric number 1, horrifying him for 3 points of damage and leaving him with 6 hit points. Janet directs her spiritual hammer at lesser skeletal cleric number 1, bashing him for 3 points of damage and leaving. Sainadius readies his mace +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 1, needing a 13 to hit. Eswin readies his longsword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 1, needing. It's Kartha's spiritual hammer's turn. What do you want it to do? GM note, a new combat round has begun. Initiative is rolled, with higher values acting first. Eswin readies his longsword +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 1, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 3, +6 to hit. Eswin misses crimson skeleton number 1. Janet readies her mace +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 1, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 6, +5 to hit. Janet misses crimson skeleton. Sainadius readies his mace +1 and swings at crimson skeleton number 1, needing a 13 to hit. Die roll is a 4, +5 to hit. Sainadius misses crimson skeleton number 1. GM note, after any remaining combat, click the Take Items button to grab any drop loot. Janet directs her spiritual hammer at crimson skeleton number 1, bashing it for 5 points of damage and defeating it. Well done. All combatants have been defeated, ending the battle. Each hero receives 139 experience points. The last of the skeletons go down and you wonder about the more powerful undead you've just encountered, surprised by their abilities and strength. You also find a scroll of Remove Curse on one of the undead clerics and pocket it. Skeletons that regenerate? Sanea's curses, frustrated by the experience. Undead clerics that can cast unholy magic? I've never heard of such things. We're dealing with a powerful necromancer, Kartha responds, herself angry by the encounter. Who knows what else we will encounter at the Deathcrypt? I will smash em to pieces. Eswin exclaims, his own hatred for the undead apparent. Let's go. The tiny path here leads north toward the Deathcrypt of Khaldun as well as back to the bandits' camp to the south. Janet casts Cure Light Wounds on herself, healing her for 2 hit points. GM note, your source of light has just gone out, your party rests and recovers for 8 hours. Wounds are tended, spells are memorized and your heroes are refreshed and Janet uses a glowing skull throughout the entire local area, illuminating everything well.